Hello, I'm Jim Pollard, and today we're going to have a conference entitled the Senior Scam Jam. This is one of the actual breakout parts of it, and we're going to be talking about postal and mail fraud. You stay tuned.
I've got two people with me today. Chad Harlan over here is an investigator with the Office of Financial Institutions. We've worked a number of cases together over the years, pretty much considering one of my partners. We've done a lot of investigations, got probably 2 or 3 ongoing now. And as I mentioned earlier, I have John Conley with me today. And I'll tell you a little bit more about him, but as I said in the opening remarks, he is a defendant, a former defendant. He was the target of one of my mail fraud investigations. I worked along with Chad. Office of Financial Institutions started receiving consumer investor complaints. They made the referral to our agency and then helped us with the investigation. We investigated that case, presented it to a federal grand jury. He was charged with mail fraud and convicted and served time in prison. As part of his rehab, he's agreed, volunteered to come help us by talking to you as a consumer, because I think the best way to learn is to get the information directly from the source. You've always heard the saying, you know, from the horse's mouth. Well, today you get to talk to a guy who was on the other end of the telephone trying to get your money. And I know as an investigator, I've learned a lot from him. I think as a consumer, you will too. First of all, we're going to go over mail fraud real quick. Have everybody heard of mail fraud? Heard of that statute? Do you know what it is? It's an easy statute, but it helps us, it enables us to get a fraud into the federal criminal justice system. And basically, it's very simple. It has 3 elements. Obviously, use of the mail is one, but there's a plan or scheme. Somebody comes up with an idea, and the intent of that plan or scheme is to defraud you of something, to take something of value from you. And in the course of doing that, at some point in the scheme, they use the mail to further that scheme. Now, the mailing itself doesn't have to be fraudulent. The bad guy doesn't have to make the mailing, and it doesn't have to be the United States mail that's used. What Congress found is back in the 70s, a lot of con guys were using UPS and FedEx. Do you know why? They're trying to avoid federal prosecution. So they rewrote the law and added any commercial mail carrier, any consumer mail carrier, any commercial mail carrier that operates in the United States. If fraud is committed using that service, it can be prosecuted under the mail fraud statute. So that includes UPS, FedEx, DHL, Airborne Express, any of those services. There's a number of frauds, and I'm going to kind of zip through these because having done this a few times, I know one of the most interesting parts of the presentation is the opportunity to ask John questions, and we've got a limited amount of time. So I'm going to kind of blow through these real quick and give you an idea of what some of the frauds are that we look at, but we're going to focus mainly on telemarketing and investment fraud. Identity theft. Y'all got some information, and there's going to be a presentation after lunch. Everybody knows what it is. It continues to grow. Fortunately, there's been some new laws. There's a new federal aggravated identity theft that if a person's convicted of that, they have mandatory 2-year sentence right off the bat, on top of whatever else they're sentenced. So, lawmakers have responded. They know it's a problem, and I think this statute will help us curb some of the identity theft. We'll take some of the guys off the street at least for a couple years. So, it's basically somebody steals something of yours, it's an identifier, and then they use it to commit another crime. They steal your identity out of the mail, or the doctor's office, somebody inside sells your medical information to somebody, then they take that and apply for a loan, or they apply for a credit card. That becomes aggravated identity theft, and if convicted of that, they have to mandatory serve 2 years. Every count is 2 years, so if they get convicted of 2 counts, they have to serve 4, and it runs consecutively, not concurrently, so they have to serve the full term. 419 Nigerian fraud schemes. We used to see these in the mail. We still do some, but mainly they're over the internet now. And they are kind of coming hand in hand with these counterfeit money orders and cashier's checks. We're being saturated with counterfeit money orders, and cashier's check. It used to be you sold something, you got a cashier's check from somebody, you knew it was good. That's what you asked for. You got to be really careful now. Make sure it clears before you cash, before you spend the money, because we're seeing a lot of these come in from particularly Nigeria and Canada, but we've seen them out of Spain and some other countries. They're coming in through internet transactions and associated with a variety of schemes, including the secret shopper. You may know what that is. They'll send you a letter saying you've been selected as a secret shopper. We want you to go out and test some of these retail companies. And by the way, Western Union wants their service tested too, so will you take part of that check and wire it to wherever? And of course, the check is counterfeit that they send you, and the part that's wired out of the country, once it's gone, it's gone. It's gone to a bank account outside the country, outside the reach of federal authorities. Work at home schemes, we're seeing some of these counterfeit checks involved in some work at home schemes. I had a secretary on the phone one time many years ago talking to somebody that called to inquire in our office if what they were getting ready to do might be a fraud. But he didn't want us to say it was a scam, don't do it. He wanted to hear, oh, this was a good opportunity, you're gonna make lots of money, go ahead and do it. But she was trying her best to convince him, don't do this. This is a work at home scheme, I've seen it before. And finally she said, listen buddy, if I can make $1 million a year working at home, you think I'd be here answering this phone? Where do you think I'd be? I'd be at home making $1 million. And as a consumer, you have to keep that in mind. You have to keep your eyes open, look for the warning signs, and when you see them, don't fall victim to them. These con guys are good. They can sell you on just about anything if you give them just a little leeway, because they're very convincing. Internet auction frauds, mortgage frauds are all things that can be investigated as mail fraud. Regardless of the scheme, like I said, educating the consumers on what to look out for is a very important part of my job. If you think about this, fraud is one of the few crimes that the victim has to agree to participate in, or else the crime's not successful. Now think about that. Somebody walks up to you and knocks you in the back of the head on the street and steals your purse. You didn't see that coming. But on a financial fraud, you have to write the check. You have to give them your bank account. You have to turn over your credit card. Now with the exception of identity theft, that's almost like a theft of property. But on most consumer financial frauds, you're talked in to helping the bad guy steal your money. So that means you as a consumer, if you know what to do and know who to turn to, and you're willing to just say no, you can stop that crime from occurring. And again, that's why we do this. We try to empower you as consumers. You need to not be afraid to ask questions, and ask lots of questions. Ask for things to be put in writing. On these telemarketers, I know my grandmother, she would be 95 if she was living, and her phone etiquette was that if somebody started a phone call, if somebody called her, it was rude to hang up. If someone else initiated the call, in her generation it was, you don't end the phone call. Anybody else grow up and have to fight that long-standing belief that if somebody calls me, they need to say goodbye? Now, some people just won't let go, even some of your friends. You eventually have to. But with a telemarketer, man, this is their dream. If they can get somebody that has that philosophy, they wish some of the young people felt that way. They wish it wasn't just a passing generations that felt that way, because if they can keep you on the phone, they can take your money eventually. So you can't be afraid to say no. You can't be afraid to hang up. And it may mean if you get a really aggressive telemarketer on there, one that's running a fraudulent company, you might literally have to hang up in on a mid-sentence. And that you've got to get over the thought of, oh, I was rude. Because that's going to be what saves you from becoming a victim. You hear this all the time. If something sounds too good to be true, If it was just for you, we have only one left. If it just doesn't sound right, it's probably a scam. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Regardless of the scam, you need to ask yourself the following questions. Do I have to pay to receive a prize or a sweepstakes? It's illegal for anybody to charge you to enter a sweepstakes. If they send you something saying you've won, but you got to pay $200 processing fee, it's a scam. Okay? Don't do it. You're not going to get anything of value back. They're going to take your money. You're not going to hear from them anymore. Do I have to give my personal information or financial information? If someone calls you and they try to talk you into giving them your Social Security number, your bank account, your credit card number, it's a scam. Legitimate organizations, legitimate businesses won't ask you to give your information blindly. Now, if it's somebody that you've done business with and you're initiating the call, you're calling your bank, then they may ask for some account information or something like that. But if somebody contacts you, if someone's trying to sell you something and they ask you for personal information, don't give it to them. If you're a guaranteed winner and there's no risk involved, again, if it sounds too good to be true, it's a fraud. Make sure you check out offers. Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Are you pressured into responding right away? You know, I'd really like to see you get involved with this, but this is the last day we're selling. If you don't buy it now, you're going to miss out on the opportunity. And I know even like car salesmen and stuff, a lot of times will use this. Well, if you buy it right now, if you sign the papers right now, I can give you this price. And I've literally told people, I said, no, that's not true. If you're willing to sell this to me today for that price, then you'll sell it to me for that price next week. There's nothing special about right now. So, you know, don't be pressured into making a decision right away. You have the right as a consumer to take it home, do some research, talk to some people, look it over, take it to an attorney, especially if it's an investment. Make sure you know what you're purchasing. But high pressure sales persons and particularly fraudulent organizations will try to get you to act right now, and they'll emphasize the importance of if you don't do it now, you're going to miss out on a great opportunity. And it's just that, it's a tactic. And you have to pay it up front. If you have to pay for something before you get it, it's a fraud. With the counterfeit money orders and cashier's checks that I mentioned before, part of that scheme is they'll have some reason, some transaction that they end up sending you a money order or a cashier's check. And they'll say, oh, I got it made for too much, or I had that to purchase another thing on the internet, and that transaction fell through. Can you go ahead and cash that and send me part of it back? If anybody sends you a check or money order and for any reason they ask you to cash that in your bank and send that money somewhere else, even if it's to somewhere inside the United States, because what happens is a lot of times it's a mailbox, mail drop. It's like a UPS store or a P.O. box. There's not really a business there. They have somebody that they pay to pick up those things and then ship it to Canada or Nigeria or somewhere like that. So if anybody asks you to cash a financial instrument, a check or a money order, MoneyGram, anything like that, and you're supposed to cash part of it, keep part of it for your trouble, and send them part, because what's going to happen is their part's going to be out of the country, not going to be able to be retrieved by government officials and by investigators here in the United States, then the bank's going to come looking for you. If it's a $20,000 check and you sent 10,000 of it and kept 10,000, comes up counterfeit, they're going to take the 10,000 out of your account because it's no good, and you're going to have to then you're going to owe the bank the other 10 that was sent outside the country. So be cautious of that. If you answer yes to any of these things, if you have to try to pressure to act now, if this is the one and only time that you can do it, if you have to give your financial information up front, any of those things we just went over, you need to be very, very cautious. And you need to call, check these companies out. Call the Better Business Bureau, have family members or an attorney, somebody look at the transaction. Call our agency, call the Attorney General's office, Better Business Bureau, any of these places, and run the name past them, see if they've got complaints on them. Now, like I said, we're going to talk about oil and gas investment frauds. And investment frauds are on the increase. It's just like after we had the hurricanes. You know what kind of fraud we started seeing? Anybody guess? Building fraud. What else? Charitable giving. All of a sudden, everybody in the world was here to help those victims. Many of them were. Many of them weren't. There was a lot of fraudulent charitable organizations that cropped up. And the thing is a lot of people think that people who make their living at fraud and con men, they think they're lazy and not hard workers. They're actually very hard workers. They just chose the path of crime to make their money rather than legitimate business. And where there is an opportunity, they are there in a second. As soon as those hurricanes blew through, the water hadn't even dried up in those states, and we saw charitable organization frauds coming out of the woodwork. With oil and gas prices going through the roof, what do we see now? Oil and gas investment schemes are probably, I know I'm investigating more now than I ever have in my career. Kentucky has just enough oil and gas to make it sound legitimate. And I'd like to say there are some legitimate oil and gas operators out there, but I'll tell you, in this state, the industry, there's a lot of fraud. These companies usually, has anybody invested in oil and gas wells? Got any investors here? Anybody ever got any phone calls from people wanting you to invest? Okay. These companies operate out of boiler rooms. Western Kentucky are full of these sales offices. This area probably is the heaviest populated as far as these companies, the operation of these companies. They use high pressure sales. They underestimate the risk and they overestimate the rate of return. The Office of Financial Institution regulates them on a regulatory basis. If there's fraud, it's usually investigated at the federal level, either by us, the FBI, or IRS. SEC also gets involved. But to tell you a little bit about the company that John Conley works for, he operated Sterling Energy and Hallmeyer Enterprises out of Hallmeyer LLC out of Lexington, Kentucky. And what happened was Chad's Office of Financial Institutions, started getting a lot of investor complaints. And they're like, these guys are taking our money and saying they're going to drill these wells, and then we don't hear from them anymore. We're not, we might get a little bit of royalties to us and sent to us through the mail, but then it stops and we can't find them. So we started looking into it, and what we found was, anybody ever heard of a Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is where a company will take money from a group of investors. And let's say this table right here all invests. And I'm going to drill a 3-well program just down the road here. I got a lease on a farm. I've gotten permission to drill there. And I think there's a lot of oil there. I think we're all going to get rich. Okay, so this table right here is going to invest. So you give me, each of you are going to give me $20,000. And I promise you that in no time, because I already know there's oil there, just as soon as I can get a hole in the ground and I can get that thing on pump, we're going to start selling oil like crazy, and you're going to start making money on oil and gas instead of spending money. That sound good? So you give me some money, and I take it, and I might stick a hole in the ground. I might stick a pipe and put a cap on it, so I got something to show my next investors. Come out here, and I go to this table, and I say, I need some money from you. I want you to get in on this. We're going to get rich on this tract of land we got down here. We're drilling. I already got a hole in the ground. I already got it ready to go. I'm just waiting to get it on pump to start selling the stuff. Come in, I show them my hole in the ground, my cap. I get them to invest. Well, I take part of their money, put it in my pocket. I take a little bit of it. I give a little to you, and a little to you, a little to you, a little to you, and tell you that's what we got from the oil company. See, I told you we're going to start selling. We're already making money, and there's more to come. And in fact, I got another tract of land down here that's even better than the last one. Won't you go ahead and invest in that too? See, you're already getting paid on this other one. So why wouldn't you go on and trust me? By now, I've won you over. So you give me more money. And then I go to this table and I start getting money. I take a little bit of the money you gave me on this second investment and I pay them a little bit, put the rest of it in my pocket. Well, obviously, eventually it crumbles because we're not selling anything. All I'm doing is taking investor funds, this hand, turn around and giving some of it out, put the rest of it in my pocket. And that's what Mr. Conley was doing. And, you know, feel free to ask him questions. I'll tell you, he doesn't talk like a cop. He doesn't talk like like you guys do. He's walked on the other side of crime, and he'll answer your questions. Please don't be offended by anything he says, because I think that adds, you know, I don't want to curtail his comments too much, because he's going to tell you the way it is and the things that he's told people and what he does to get your money. So feel free to ask him questions. I have to commend him. He drove 5 hours from Richmond, Kentucky here. He's not being paid to do it. He's doing this because he wants to stay on the right track. He's been convicted twice of mail fraud for running these schemes. And he's going to tell you how he got started and how he got into it. So, you know, really, I give him a pat on the back for trying to stay on the right side of the law and helping us out. So I'd like to introduce John Conley to you.
Good morning, everyone. First thing I'd like to do is explain to you the reason that I do want to stay involved in teaching people about telemarketers is because it keeps me from going back to that. I've learned, just like as an alcoholic, as long as I keep telling everybody what an alcoholic I am, then nobody will offer me a drink, unless he's a pure fool. So bottom line is that telemarketers, it took me 25 years of telemarketing to really get my act perfected. After 25 years, I probably trained, I'd say 500-600 good men that really know how to get on the phone, keep you on the phone, talk to you about anything you want to talk about, and get your money quickly. Now, a lot of people, one of the most asked questions that I've been asked since we've been doing this is, what do I do to keep from being defrauded? I mean, what can I do? And the one basic step that I tell everyone is just do not talk to telemarketers. First off, if you give a telemarketer any kind of leeway to get you to talk, he's going to keep you on the phone. The longer you stay on the phone with a telemarketer, the more you're likely to get had. When I first started this, I first started everything with a televangelist. Back in those days, we did everything with 2-inch tape, and beta was the greatest thing. But it was in the 70s, and the first thing I learned about televangelists was that they come out with awful good things to say to you to get you to give them money. And after watching some of the telethons and some of the things that I was part of back in the 70s, I got to seeing, well, if you can raise money by using God, you could raise money just about in anything. So that's when I got the bright idea to get into oil and gas. And oil and gas drilling is an honest business if you honestly do it honestly. But oil and gas drilling involves a lot of telemarketers that are not honest, don't care about anything except selling you a well that probably costs $50,000, and they're raising $350,000 on it. And basically what they do after getting your money is that you're pretty much forgotten about. And the only time that you'll get a phone call from them probably again is to try to get you to put in some more money. I don't want to hit the religion end of it too hard, but I just got to say that telemarketing and televangelists, to me, operate in the same mode. In other words, anything we can say to cheer you up, get you happy, get you thinking that everything's going to be okay, then send me your money. And as long as I can keep you on the phone, I'm going to get you in that frame of mind. If you're a Republican, I'll talk to you and I'll be more of a Republican. If you're a Baptist, I'm much more of a Baptist. It doesn't matter what you say, I can, and we are trained. What I used to do is take the Bible and train people about scriptures and stuff to quote to people when they talk to them on, if you find out they're Christians or religious people, lay it on them. Tell them how that you just love God, Jesus is the answer, and then head for the money. Go for the money. Always go for the money. So I grew up in a real poor family. I hated being poor. There's nothing shameful about being poor, but it's awful unhandy. So I decided to do everything I could to make money. And through the years, you develop, your conscience is usually buried into the background where you either do drugs or you do alcohol to bury it so that you really, that's the only way that I could deal with it is through alcohol. So the bottom line is that if you're being called by a telemarketer or anyone that talks to you about anything that has to do with you sending me money and we're going to make you a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow look like a Dixie cup full of pennies. And that's just some of the little sayings you'll hear him say. They're very well trained to get your attention. Don't worry about a thing. Just grab a hold of the coattail of success and ride on in with me. We're going to make a pot full of gold here on this deal. We'll have oil running out your boots. But just remember, no deal is 100% ironclad. Nothing. I remember back in the 80s when the savings and loans in Ohio all went broke. I don't know how many of you remember that. But what was funny is I had a lot of money in those banks, and I was really mad because they took my ill-gotten gains. So just stop and think about that. That's pretty stupid, isn't it? But that's the way it works. And but there's no ironclad thing in anything you invest in. I mean, I've heard of people. Enron's a perfect example. That company there fooled many CPAs, many good bankers. I mean, these were high dollar, high educated people that was involved in Enron. So there's tons of companies like that. WorldCom, World.com. I mean, there's a lot of big companies that went broke here in the 90s and the 2000 series. So I'll go ahead and answer some of your questions real quick because we're very short on time. I wish we had more time, but we don't. So go ahead and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Go ahead.
If we're at home and we get a call, and I'm not recommending you talk to them because then you get caught, but is there some information that would be of value to you, such as caller ID, if the caller ID shows up?
If you do talk to them, the first thing you should say, there's a good trick. Always just say, well, do you mind if I record this conversation? Because I want to make sure I have a bad memory. Just play it off like that. And then the other thing is always ask them for everything in writing. Everything that you get should be, you should have any kind of investment should be some kind of prospectus or a packet of information that tells you who the principals are, who the players are, what's going on. But again, those can be doctored and fooled too. So one of the greatest things is, like I say, talk about recording the conversation and then say, well, I'm going to call the U.S. Attorney General's office to check you out if that's okay. And if they start backpedaling, they'll usually hang up.
What's the saying you use about those perspectives and your readers?
Well, what I used to teach my guys was, look, readers don't buy, buyers don't read. So, and that's pretty much the way it is. Most of the people that invest with me never read nothing. They always went off of what I said. So, I mean, I'm not that pretty, but I could sell face-to-face pretty good, so.
I was thinking more of the investigative side. If we have caller ID and a name comes up or a number comes up, could it be sent to you as possible?
Sure, and that's the things that we're going to look for. We're going to look for the phone numbers that are being used. Sometimes they're toll-free numbers, sometimes they're caller services. They change their numbers frequently. I know probably, John, you all changed your numbers after you got a program sold. All of a sudden that number was out of service because they don't want you finding them after they've gotten your money, you know, maybe once, twice, 3 times because they fooled you with this Ponzi scheme. Like John said, the great thing to do is get it in writing, and they're going to want you to send them the money somewhere. So even if you're not investing, if you're talking to these people, and I don't want to say all investments are fraudulent, obviously there's not. But there is a lot of fraudulent companies out there, so you have to be very careful and separate the legitimate ones from the fraudulent ones. If they send you some information, they're going to tell you where to send the check or where to wire the check. That's all stuff as an investigator that I can use if it turns out to be a fraud down the road. And that's what I want to emphasize too, is please don't be afraid if you are a victim or if you become a victim or you know somebody who's a victim. I know it can sometimes be embarrassing that you fell for it. We've talked to a lot of victims over the years, and it's like, well, why didn't you come forward? Because a lot of times I have to find them. And they're like, well, I was just so embarrassed that I could be, sometimes it's doctors and lawyers that, that are target, very educated people, much more educated than I am. And they say, I just can't believe I fell for this. But as John tells you, he said it before, he said, you're no match for a good telemarketer, for a good fraudster, because they will do whatever they have to do. If you need a friend, they're a friend. If you want to pray, they'll go to church with you. If you're a Democrat, like he said, he'll come talk to you about politics. He'll take you out to dinner, have drinks with you. He will build a rapport until he convinces you can trust him. And if you keep talking to him, if you agree to, they're going to escalate from there. Okay, I've talked to you, let me come see you. If you won't send the money just over the phone, let me come introduce myself. I'm sure you sat down in people's living rooms and across the table at dinner with
like
them.
I say, anything it takes to get the money, most of the guys that I trained, we'd put them through a vigorous, maybe 40, 50 hours a week that they'd have to set maybe for 30, 60 days of listening to the pros talk on the phone. And they would have an extension where they could hear what you're saying, what the salesman's saying, and then you would pick everything apart, and then that's how you would train them. And the biggest thing is always our first line of training anyone is if you are afraid to pick up that phone and talk to someone, get out of here, because you don't belong here. You can be anybody you want to be on that telephone. That's what we used to train them. You can be anything you want to be. So, because they can't reach through the phone and get you. So you can do whatever, say whatever. You're very safe when you got that phone. Now talking face-to-face with people is a little bit different. They'll always just knock the you-hoo-hoo out of you. But go ahead, next question.
Who do you call? In other words, you say call somebody, but who?
You're talking about where I would get my list?
No, I'm talking about if I felt like I had a fraudulent call, who do I call?
Oh, there's a number of agencies that are here to...
I know, but where are all these numbers? You get go out here, Sky, and have...
Office of Financial Institutions, Chad's office, has a booth up out here. They've got contact numbers where you can call them. They are the regulatory agency that regulates anything that's in security, anything that's an investor in the state, the SEC. All those numbers are available for you. You can call our agency. We've got an 800 number that I can give you.
She's got the list of numbers.
In everybody's folder, and it has phone numbers and website for everybody who's here today.
And that's why we're doing this today, is because that's the number one question sometimes. First of all, if I think it's a scam, what do I need to look for? And then, who do I call? How do I do that? How do I find out if it's a scam? You can call the Better Business Bureau. We have a very close working relationship with them. A lot of times they'll pass over hundreds of complaints to us on companies that help us start our investigations. Attorney General's office, the Office of Financial Institutions, and all those numbers are in your packet. And I'd call them all. Have you heard about this company? Or have they been ripping people off? Is it a scam? You can't do too much investigative work and inquiry on your part when it comes to your money.
How do you get the numbers to call?
You're talking about my victims? I'd get them from your credit card companies. Your names are for sale. That's probably the hardest thing to get across to people. Everything that's out there is for sale. Everything that's on the internet's for sale. I mean, there's all kinds of privacy acts, and the government has done everything they can to help protect you. That's why I seriously tell you that anything you do anymore, your name's out there, and it's easy to get your phone number. All these lists are for sale. I used to pay $1 a name on better, if for instance, you had let's say a Gold American Express, there's a list that you charge over $100,000 a year. There's a list of that. There's also the millionaires list from Dun and Bradstreet. They used to sell them to us. I'm sure that everything is still the same thing. So, go ahead, lady in the back.
Is there any way to get your name off of those lists?
Yeah, we have what they call a no-call list and all that, but sometimes it's working, sometimes it doesn't, because a lot of the telemarketers now, there's a lot of them in India, the country India, that's calling in for telemarketers. So.
And that's a good point. If you've got your name on the no-call list and you've asked somebody not to call you and they keep wanting to talk to you, that's a red flag. You know, legitimate telemarketers
Right.
have been told, because there's laws to protect you as consumers, if you're on the no-call list, you're not supposed to call those numbers. But you know what? Bad guys don't care about rules. They don't care about the laws. So if they're calling you up, that's a red flag. You need to check that company out very carefully.
I always tell them right off, I'm on the no-call list,
Very good.
and they'll hang up.
Very good. Because if you talk to them, she said that she ought, right off the bat, if she gets a call, she says, I'm on the no-call list, I don't want you calling me.
And they just go,
And they hang up. But if they keep calling and they keep talking, well, okay, but I'm not selling you anything today. Have you used that line?
Yeah.
I'm not
That's
selling
the
you
first
anything
thing
today. I just want
would
to tell you something.
To get you comfortable, I would say, let's say your name was Joe. I'd say, Joe, look, I don't have a thing to sell you today. I just wanted to call you to get acquainted with you and let you know what I've been doing with this company that I have. And that's the way I would do it. So.
And see, what they're doing there is what are they playing on? A lot of you, how many of you live alone? Several of you. How many of you have family that maybe live a distance away, or they got jobs that make them busy and they don't get by to see you as much as you'd like for them to, or as much as they would like to? That's why senior citizens, retired people are sometimes targeted, or often targeted, because they're hoping that you're lonely. They're hoping that you need a friend. Now, fortunately, it's not as bad as it used to be, because we're not as rural a country as we used to be. We have more organizations that are available out there, but it's still a problem. And they're hoping somebody's looking for a friend, and they can convince you to talk to them, and then they're going to try to win you over. And eventually, the ultimate goal is always to get your money.
It's amazing how many people will tell you, you don't even have to try after you get to talking to someone, how many people will tell you everything about themselves. I mean, it really is. Once you get somebody comfortable talking to you, it just seems like, I was always so surprised how easy it is to find out how much money you had in the bank, to find out what you invested in. Man, it was just so easy. So I just kind of, what I'm trying to really tell you is make sure that if you do take a telemarketer's call, just be very leery what's on the other end of that phone, because believe me, they are not there to love you. They are there to take your money. Go ahead, lady.
I sit here listening to you and how smooth talking and how should you talk?
Believe me, you get to the point where you just, actually getting caught sometimes relieves you of all the pressure.
I tell him I'm a better cop than he is a criminal. He is good, and he's not unlike most of the con guys I meet. In fact, I'll tell you, I'd rather sit down and talk to John at dinner than I would most of the defense attorneys that work on the other side of the case, because he's more interesting. He's done more stuff. He's talked to more people. He's got more stories. And that's how he makes his living, is charming you.
So watch out. Go ahead.
How many people did you sell snowballs to?
I think it's probably a couple thousand. Yeah, I don't really remember. Don't want to remember.
I think we indicted him on $2.5 million.
Yeah, no, it's 3.5.
$3.5 million.
3.5 million. But there was a lot more. I mean, there was many years of doing things like that. Got to remember, there's always a little bit of truth in anything that has to do with a lie or an illusion. So just like when you're trying to do any kind of pyramid scheme or Ponzi scheme or chain letters, how many of you know what a chain letter is? Well, that's a Ponzi scheme. That's what a Ponzi scheme is. I'll send you a letter, you send it to 2 buddies, send me the money, and then on down the line it goes. So That's why those are illegal, because somewhere the chain is going to get broke because there's always one lazy fool that will not send the money, or I should say smart person that won't send the money. Go ahead, lady in the back.
Just how many people have you trained to do this, and what type of people are they? All men, women, combination, young, old, old, whatever?
Most of them are younger. I started them. I tried to find, when I first got into the business, the one thing I learned was used car salesmen was the best at what I wanted. And the reason I say that, it's not because they're dishonest or anything like that. It's just they're real straightforward, and they like looking good, they like presenting themselves good, they love money, they like making money. But if you'll notice one thing about a car salesman, the first thing he'll ask you when you walk on the lot and you're looking at a car, this will tell you the mindset of this salesman. He says, what do I have to do today to sell you that car? And see what I'm saying? I really like that positive attitude, because he knows if you're looking at something, you're going to buy something, so let's sell it. And that's positive. I've never got anything being negative. And remember, a good telemarketer is extremely positive about what he's doing. Even though a lot of them, a lot of times do not know that they're selling something that's fraudulent. A lot of times the telemarketer themselves, some of the understudies, do not know that it's fraudulent.
And that's not uncommon in the fraud cases that I investigate. What we'll see even on the large corporate frauds is there's a group of individuals that's at the top, and as an investigator what we do is we follow the money, because the people that are making the money, that's the one that knows what's going on. The people on the underlayers, the introductory type people, a lot of times they know their little part, what they're supposed to do, but they're not privy to the big picture. And so even some of the large corporate fraud cases, we'll see that. This department knows this is going on, this department knows this is going on, but the guys at the top that are making the money are keeping them separated. Sometimes they're located in separate buildings. The guys that make the phone calls aren't where they do the paperwork. And
Yeah, you always have an administration level, and that's usually where the thing, just like in Enron, for instance. And I use Enron because if you study that case a little bit, you'll see that there was just a top little layer of people that knew what was going on. Everybody underneath knew nothing. So.
But what happened to those people that trained under you when you got?
Oh, most of them went on and probably, well, usually, and this is why I tell, just like Roberta and I kind of talk about this, that every time you bust a telemarketer, there's always 3 or 4 new ones start up. Sure, they spread out, they start their own. You know, if they're really good, like a lot of the guys that I trained started their own businesses, went into oil and gas. There's a lot of them.
That's why education's so important, and getting out here and telling you guys what to look out for, because like I said earlier, there's more fraud than there are government resources to investigate it. So if we can prevent it by educating you, telling you where to call, helping you learn what questions to ask and what red flags to look for, hopefully, you know, con guys are going to move on. If there's nobody giving them money, they're going to go somewhere else. So. Oh
yeah, you don't fish in the same pond. You keep coming up with no fish, do you? You got to move on.
But they get no.
Pardon?
They get no recommend for making a phone call.
No, because again, most of them didn't know that there was the scheme going on. So therefore, what crime did they commit? I mean, there's no crime or no intent to commit any kind of crime. So basically, they just go on and either learn from that crime and be a little more slippery, or they learn from that crime and make sure that they don't get involved in something like that. So go ahead.
This is to Roberta. Other than oil and gas, what are some of the other big frauds being put out there right now?
Obviously, mortgage fraud's been a big problem. We've all read about that. Credit rehab. You're in debt up to your eyeballs, but I can help you. Just send me some money first. I mean, right off the bat, that really doesn't sound like a nice plan, does it? I'm broke, but they want you to send them some money. Anything that's out there has the potential of being a fraud. The charitable giving, You have to really check out an organization. You can call the Attorney General's office and see if they're registered as a nonprofit organization to make sure that the company you're giving money to is really doing what they say they're doing, and they're registered as a nonprofit organization. Even somebody who's registered, you need to look and ask, how much of my money goes to the organization? Some companies, like John says, they'll hand you a brochure with information, and if you read it, it's like how they're going to rip you off. You give me $100, I'm going to keep 80% of it. I'm going to keep $80 and give 20 of it to poor people in Africa. So you have to look and explore this stuff, because sometimes they'll actually put it in writing. But
We have, there's a couple of telemarketers that started their own telemarketing firm in Florida. And that's what they do, is raise money for like fraternal order police, the fire department. They do all, but they get 80% of what they raise. 20% actually goes to the cause. So that's what, some of the things you just need to learn. Anytime there's money involved, there's going to be a scam, there's going to be something going on. And actually, if they tell you that 80% of it goes in their pocket, by the way, that's legal. But if they don't tell you, that's a different story.
I think this gentleman's got a question over here.
Go ahead.
You might not have to ask this, but you're not some little golden cage daughter. Things that people across the whole sheriff department come and move them out, and they didn't have no idea. Somebody else had sold their home.
Right.
I mean, how can that happen?
You know, unfortunately, technology has a lot of benefits, but as we become more of a faceless society, meaning we don't walk up to our banker and see them every time we deposit a check, or we don't know on a personal basis the guy that sells us our insurance or the people that we do business with, we've become more segregated, and we turn loose of our money a lot of times without sitting across the table and talking to the people that are on the other side of the deal, shaking their hand, getting their guarantee, and looking in their eyes and knowing whether or not, sizing them up and see if you can trust them. So the more removed we get from those personal transactions, the easier it is using the internet and the mails and the telephone. Like John said, you can be anybody you want to be on the other end of that telephone. So many of these transactions can go very far without actually having a whole lot of face-to-face meetings. So that's how some of these, and I tell you, some of these con guys are good. I mean, I've got a guy right now who I'm looking for, who I've got a case on that I'm getting ready to try to present charges in federal court. He's a former convict, and he's been on the phone representing himself as an attorney. And he's very convincing. He's gotten access codes to the databases that the attorneys use to get their cases up and going. So before he comes and talks to you, you might unfortunately have a kid that didn't turn out real good, and he ended up in prison. Sorry, John.
That's okay. Of course, I believe in what Caesar said, too. You should hang all these attorneys. What he's doing is he comes to you and says, you know what, I know your son's made some mistakes, but I think he's learned his lesson. I'm going to help get him out of prison. I need a little bit of money from you, $2,000 or $3,000, and I'm going to, because of this new law, I'm going to get your son out of jail, and he'll be home by Christmas. You write the check. They have actually gone to the prison to pick up their loved ones, sometimes states away, because they believed this guy was an attorney. Nobody ever checked to see if he had a license. He was a former convict, got out of prison about 2 years ago, and we're actually looking for this felon now to charge him. But that's the thing, that's how somebody came in and said, I own the house down there on Maple Street and I want to sell it. Okay, nobody checked the paperwork. And if you've got the guts to be a con guy, unfortunately, a lot of times all you got to do is act the part. You know, I've gone undercover before, and if I can, but they bogus them up. I mean, you know, you're thinking like an honest person. But if you're dishonest and you're willing to go in and use a scanner to cut and paste and print out this stuff on these, it's like these counterfeit checks. I can go write checks if I get your account number. If I'm going to do some yard work for you, I'll give you a really good deal. I'm going to rake your whole yard for $20. You write me a check, I got your account number now. I can go to Office Depot and get me a little printer
And I can sit in my hotel room and I can print out all kinds of checks. I can drain every penny out of your account before you know what's hit you. We think as honest people. We play within the rules. Well, we got to have a deed. Okay, I'll make a deed. I'll create one. You know, and if you're willing to step outside your ethics and your morals, that's why we as consumers have to be very careful. And it's unfortunate, but when it comes to your money, you got to hang on to it tight. You can't trust people. You got to ask questions, you got to ask more questions, and you got to ask questions of the questions. And you can never be too careful.
What about ordering things off the internet?
You know, for a long time I resisted it because I see only the bad stuff. I say ordering on online auctions is like going to Conley to the races. You take $50 and think, you know what, I'm probably not going to come home with it, but I'm going to have a good time doing it. That's kind of like being on the internet. I think I'm going to win this thing and be the highest bidder, but if happens I lose that $50, it's not going to bankrupt me. So I'd only put out there what you can afford to lose when it comes to these online auctions and things. There's no way I'd buy a car and send them a $15,000 check. No way in the world I'd do it. Other people do. That's their business. But once it's gone, it's kind of like putting air back in a bottle once, you know, or back in a balloon once you've let it out. It's very difficult to get back in there. As far as legitimate organizations, a lot of companies do business, and Postal Service, they mail. So obviously we're very supportive of retail companies using the internet to take orders. I stick to the organizations and the retail companies that I've done business with in the past, and I don't do pop-ups. Somebody comes in and says they got a great deal for you, and it looks like it's Sears, but I don't know. I actually go to Sears.com and go in that way. So I try to go to their page, not through a link that comes to me.
What about eBay?
Again, I view it as, you know, you take a chance. A lot of people use them. I bought a trash compactor for $350. It's the biggest thing I've bought, and I was scared to death that I had that sucker in my truck. The whole time I went actually and picked it up. What I did is I looked only for somebody close, within driving distance. I actually emailed them and told them to call me, and I talked to them on the phone. What's the story? Why you got a brand new trash compactor that you're not going to use, and why didn't you use it? Where'd it come from? Does it work? And I asked all those questions, and he said he bought it, thought he was going to install it, and didn't have room for it. It's sat in his garage for 2 years, and he's tired of moving stuff around it. It sounded legitimate. I took the chance. I paid through PayPal, so that there was. Well, it helps because it's basically on a credit card that's with a third-party company, and if something happens that it doesn't work out, you can call PayPal up and says, you know, I didn't get what I said I was going to get, or I didn't get my product. If the money's still in their account, they can reverse the charges. What happens a lot of times is these fraudulent companies, as soon as that money hits that account, it goes somewhere else. And if there's no money there to back out, PayPal can't help you. They can shut them down. But I'd be cautious, and you know, if you can get an email from them, save that stuff. If it turns out to be a fraud, at least you've got something that can be used against them. And unfortunately, sometimes you're not going to get your money back, but you might save somebody else from being a victim, or you might see some justice in that they have to serve some jail time. Yes?
eBay has escrow services too for larger purchases that adds an extra layer of protection if you can reach that agreement with the other party. So you can take advantage of some of their services too to add an extra layer of protection.
You can actually buy insurance with them too, I think.
Right. And again, I kind of stay close to the edge. I mean, I don't go walk out too far on that ledge because initially, you know, my family members say, you don't trust anybody. You think everybody's a crook. I said, no. I don't know her, and I don't think she's a crook. I know she's got the potential of being a crook if she wants to be. That's the difference. Is we always, as consumers, usually take people for their word, which is good, but from an investigator's point of view, in the back of your mind, everybody's capable of ripping you off. You have to make sure you protect your own interest.
Even reputable insurance company.
Absolutely.
Well, since you said that, a lot, just to keep honest people on.
I indicted 3 insurance representatives 2 weeks ago. I had 2 of them in my office yesterday talking to them. They've come in to admit their part in all in all, between tax fraud and insurance fraud, is about $1 million worth of fraud.
Well, they're sitting at 200 or 300 miles away, and you're here at home.
Yep,
They can say or do whatever they want.
that's right. Yes, ma'am.
How do you protect against somebody taking the number off the check, like you were talking about?
As an investigator, I am appalled that our banking in this country hasn't addressed that, because I try not to write checks. But to me, I try not to write checks. I use debit cards or I pay online through my bank, and the bank sends them a check.
But then you're online.
You are, unfortunately, you know, every time you call the bank, everything's online now. I fought that for years. I'm just not going to do business on the internet. I'm not going to do it. And everybody, if you mail a check to your bank, what do? They put it on the computer and they wire it to another bank. So you can't avoid it at this point. It's our commerce is wrapped around the wires, the internet.
Yeah,
and
the convenience
bank
of
transfer.
our monetary system is a convenient way for a crook to get your money. So just remember, the more convenience you have in life, the easier it is for us to take it.
I'd like to see every financial transaction require my thumbprint before my money's transferred. A lot of people say, oh, it's big government. That's government wanting to watch what I do. But you know what? My thumb stays with me. If somebody gets my thumb, they can have my money because I'm going to fight them for it. But if you got a thumbprint and it takes that, your account number and a PIN number, that's a pretty good layer of security. I think as time goes on, we'll see our banking, financial institutions move towards a more covert system. But right now, it's on the bottom of that check. It's the way a lot of corporate fraud is taking place. Somebody calls and, you know, they go in, they buy a refrigerator. They'll spend the $2,500, might use a fraudulent credit card to do it. They'll send it in rebate forms. They'll get a check from Frigidaire or whoever, and the codes are on the bottom. The account numbers, the routing numbers, they'll take that and then just start cranking out checks. They'll go around in different cities and cash these rebate checks. And it takes a while to catch up with them. I mean, it's so easy now if you've got a check and you're willing to go get a printer and print out the checks, you can commit a lot of check frauds. You got to be very careful and make sure that it's a legitimate check before you deposit it. Yes, ma'am.
They made them take the social security numbers off checks. Wouldn't there be some way, or couldn't there be some way that they could obscure your bank number so that only a reader could read it?
I would think there is, but the banking institutions have been real slow. The financial agencies have been real slow to respond to that. They're moving towards debit cards, which have the encoded barcodes and stuff. A lot of the credit card companies are putting your face actually on the credit card, so if it doesn't look like you, they're not supposed to cash it. They're doing things to work that way, but we've had checks in our system, and that banking system has been in place so long that they just haven't made the transition. I mean, if I were you as a consumer, I'd call my representatives and say, you know, I think there need to be some reform and some better protections for consumers as far as, you know, why are these checks, why is the routing number on the bottom of my check? Why can't it be encoded? Why can't it be on a barcode?
I saw on the news this morning that at the Olympics that are going to be in China, that the admission tickets has a chip.
Mm-hmm.
And with your identity and everything in that chip on each ticket so that nobody can get in unless you have an approved identity.
UK basketball tickets. Used to be when we investigated theft of tickets out of the mail, we'd have to go sit and wait to whoever sat down in this seat to see who showed up. All right, did you steal those tickets? No, I bought them from John Doe down here. You go look at John Doe, he's the guy that stole them. So you'd have to actually physically go. Now, when they scan that, you go through and they run it underneath the barcode, it reads it. So you can actually put in there before the event, seat number 123 is stolen. If somebody comes in with that ticket, you need to alert security. Security gets them and then takes them in. So you don't have to go actually sit and have somebody physically at the seat waiting for them to show up. So even event tickets are barcoded now.
Someone told me that when you check into a hotel and they give you a magnetic keyless, that there's other information on that.
I've heard that, and I don't know that for certain. I think they were moving that way, and I'd say they've probably backed off of that now.
Like credit card information or?
Is it? It's not true? I'll tell you what is there, though. There's a whole lot of information about you in the hotel computers. So we investigated a case. Several years ago. A guy from India. He's here legally. He's now a United States citizen. He's been here many years, but he's actually serving time in federal prison now. But he was committing a number of financial crimes. His main thing was he had people that were here temporarily, either for school or work or whatever. Their visas were up and they were leaving the country. But they'd been here for 4 years, going to college or whatever. They had a legitimate identity. They had bank accounts and credit cards and that kind of thing. Well, they're leaving, going back home outside the country. They're not coming back. He'd take those checkbooks, and all of a sudden, his identity was their identity. He'd start writing them and applying for credit cards and using them. Looking for the guy, he's gone back home to Pakistan or India or wherever. Most of these guys were from Pakistan or India that were working in this group. But when I interviewed him, we did a search of his business. We found a stack of papers about that thick. You know what it was? Name and information of everybody that stayed at a hotel out of Chicago. A buddy of his had printed it down one night working the night shift and mailed it to him. Interesting thing about that is he didn't use it. He didn't use those names to go out and get credit cards. He made up false names so that the credit card company was the victim. And when we interviewed him, we said, you had all these personal informations, all this data that you could have used. He said, oh, those are real people. He said, I'd never cheat a person. That would ruin their credit. His culture, it was kind of like buyers beware. If you're a business and you're not watching your stuff and you're getting out credit cards people you don't know, shame on you. He'd rip off the credit card companies, but he wouldn't steal from individuals. So even criminals have kind of a code of conduct that they follow sometimes.
That's that John Dillinger thing.
One note on the hotel key card, though, is some resorts, though, while your personal information won't be on there, some large resorts, like Disney World does it, your key card is also a on-resort credit card. So be careful of that. Don't misplace it if you're at a location like that. But most resorts, or all the resorts, don't put any personal information on there. There has been an email and stuff going around for years that said that it turned out it's a legend.
Back to caller IDs on telephones, even though area codes don't mean anything anymore. But if a caller ID does not show up, isn't that a clue? And secondly, would you recommend caller ID even though it costs you a little bit to have that feature?
I have it because I like knowing who I'm talking to, and if I see it's a toll-free number, a lot of times I won't answer it. So yeah.
It's a blank, then it's a blank.
Yeah.
But mainly in my case, or anybody I ever worked with, we made sure that the number came up, like whether it be Ohio Pure Oil or Ohio Black Gold Exploration or Sterling Energy. It showed up on your caller ID because of that general reason, because we wanted you to understand who was calling.
And what they do is they just change numbers frequently.
Yeah.
So, all right, I appreciate you all coming. John?
Thank you.